Hi, everyone. Raj Gavrila. Welcome to this Facebook Live session. We're still covering how to or solving a performance gap using 7 strategies. So 7 strategies to solve a performance gap. Last week or the week before, you had the strategy on coaching. And then the weeks before that were the other strategies. So we're on strategy 6. And strategy 6 is advice. That's a very, very important word, and a word not to be taken lightly. Really. And the more you realize that, the better for you. So obviously you've been doing what you're doing, and today the session is on experiencing intelligent breakthroughs in your performance in life. And I'm sure throughout life, a lot of people have given you advice. Whether you asked for it or not, sometimes in a very helpful way. Even though you didn't ask for it, they gave it to you because they could see you're suffering and struggling. And that's great. Here's the key with advice. The key with advice is what filter you put on it. So you need to know who it's coming from, and you need to know, does it really help or work for you, right? And most likely, what you also need to know is this person a person you could repeatedly go to for advice on this thing that they're helping you with? And most likely, the answer to that second part, after you've confirmed or unconfirmed the first part, is no. Okay? And I'll give you an example. Like someone, if you had some kind of medical issue or something of that nature, they could, a family member could tell you, well, this is what I did, and I took some of this, and it cleared it up. I took some Theraflu. That's what happened to me a long, long time ago, my first job. I was really feeling icky and never heard of Theraflu, but my colleague told me about it. So I tried it, and sure enough, it was gone. It was amazing. So I didn't have to go to the doctor. But for other ailments or illnesses or injuries that I had, I knew he wasn't the right person to go to, just because there's more involved, right? And so that's what's really important for you to understand. And this relates to anything in your performance in life, in your work, in your family, in your personal situation, in whatever thing that you're trying to make breakthroughs in your performance in your life. It's very important, who do you take advice from, right? So you want to obviously take repeated advice from someone that you have some type of regard for. You know their credentials or what they do for people. They're trusted. They're respected by you. And so that's really, really the essential piece of it, right? That's the essential piece of it. Now, I'll give you some more examples of times when I've had great advice, whether it's for free or it's because someone's helping me as a friend or as a colleague or as a peer, or it's because it's paid, because I do pay people for advice. And of course, those people are people who I highly regard because of the reasons that I mentioned previous. And that's very important. And this could be a coach, this could be someone who is working with you on human performance, life, organizational development, and breakthroughs, just somebody of that nature. So I'll give you examples of great advice. Examples of great advice are, for example, I was, as you know, I'm a professional speaker, an expert that speaks professionally, coach, consultant. And I was working and wanting to work on my platform skills more, and I was working on developing a character in some of my programs. And so I was thinking about it, and finally I asked the right person in my Professional Speakers Association, the National Speakers Association of Georgia. I asked the right person to lunch, and sure enough, this was his advice. It didn't take long. Sure, I took him out to lunch, and I bought him a nice lunch, and we had a great time. But he really did it as a friend, as help, because he's much further along in his career than I am. And so his advice was to, one, set the scene. And that's talking about when I'm doing my storytelling, when I'm on the platform as a speaker. And then two was to take a class in the fundamentals of acting. That was it. Everything else during that discussion was not advice. It was more us being peers, friends, growing our relationship. But that was really the advice. And it didn't take him very long to do. Yet, that advice, most people would not have been able to give it to me. In fact, out of all the people that I know, very few, if any, very few would know how to do it so with such clarity. And that's what real advice is. That's the kind of advice you pay for. That's the kind of person that if he wasn't in my association, I wouldn't have ever been able to have access to. Because he knows me, he knows what I'm doing, what I'm working on. And he's actually an advisor for me. So that is great advice. Now, the thing is that, sometimes people aren't fortunate to pay hundreds of dollars and go and attend meetings and events at a professional association for whatever reason, time, money, combination of things, just not comfortable doing that type of work, whatever it may be. And there are situations like that for me, and that's when you go and you get advice from other people that I pay for. Now, I've had a lot of sports advice, and you can see this, where this is going probably. And, a lot of times my friends are very well-meaning, and a lot of times they're right on. But, sometimes times when they're right on is, hey, when you're doing those stretching exercises, you've got to do them slow so the muscle can contract. That's great advice. Another advice just at work. I'm talking about great advice, right? Another advice at work is that, you're trying to do too much on your own. You're being too hard on yourself. We've got resources here. You need to go and engage them, and they need to engage you as well, as by being someone that can help you, because that's part of their job, whether they realize it or not. We're not here to hoard knowledge, and we're not here to see people struggle and suffer to do or complete a project. That's not who we are. And so that's great advice. As sometimes you do feel a little awkward and going and asking somebody, thinking that you're supposed to figure something out. Now, I remember working as an engineer, and I was obviously something that I did as a profession, so obviously I had to be at least good. But I remember I was learning some new function codes, is what they called it. And one of the engineers here that was in Atlanta with me was like, a lot of people at headquarters, a lot of engineers have challenges with this. My boss even said that. And so, some things just do come easier to people, and some things are just a little more complicated. It just really depends on a lot of factors. So it's not just, well, you don't have a positive attitude. It's not just, oh, you're not confident, or it's not just, and now I'm getting into the negative advice, and it's not just, oh, well, because he's been doing it for this many years. No, it's not that, okay? That's not great advice. Sure, do you need a positive attitude? If you're one of those people, yes, I think it's a positive mindset, but that's me because You know from my research, a positive mindset is essential to control your actions, habits, what you do, etc., your mood, your subconscious, your consciousness. And then you know that your relationship intrinsically with your motivation, inspiration is what controls your positive attitude. Okay. So really, I think that if you're intrinsically motivated, inspired, you already have a positive attitude. What you're wanting to work on is having a winning mindset or a performance-oriented mindset, a life-oriented, life skills-oriented mindset, goal-oriented mindset, that type of stuff, a positive mindset. That's what I know from being a human performance life expert people are needing and working on. You know, so many times I've heard somebody tell somebody, well, because you got a bad attitude or you have a negative attitude. No, they don't. And plus, you're not being helpful doing that anyway, even if you perceive it like that. No, that's their way of reaching out for help. And I wish more bosses, supervisors, and just peers and individuals would realize this. But a lot of people think like this, even a lot of bosses, peers, and supervisors. That's reality. I would love to change that. And of course, that's part of the reason I'm in business. The other one, what did I say, was time. Well, you know, if you just spent more time doing this, you'd be a lot better. There's some truth to all of these things, but that's not really it either. What really matters is who's teaching you and what they're teaching you, right? Who's teaching you and what they're teaching you. And are you able to go forward with that and see how that goes forward and how to get a little better each time? Because if you just base it on number of years, not everybody's 5 years of experience is the same. Some might have learned more things than other people. Some might have had a better coach than other people, better instructor, better teacher, better boss, better supervisor, better projects. So that's not necessarily it either. Okay. You know, I mean, that's just reality. Some might have put more effort into those 5 years in the sense that they went and they looked at additional resources to sort of add clarity because they were seeking clarity, and they did that on their own, or somebody advised them to do that. See how that works? Well, what was the third? Can't remember the third one. I know I talked about that. I talked about having a positive mindset. I talked about time. Oh, the third one was confidence. I tell you what, you can have all the confidence in the world, but if you don't have the right mindset, if you're not intrinsically motivated, inspired, and you're not wanting to develop, nurture, develop, build, and grow yourself as well as others, doing whatever it is that you're wanting to do, your confidence is not real. Okay. I mean, I appreciate and I like that you're confident like that. And I think that's a great persona to have because I obviously have that. But the more and more I've gotten into human performance in life, the more and more I've heard these three things from people. And it actually really hurts them because they usually hear this from someone that's a part of their life that's important to them. Oh, you don't have a positive attitude. No, you have a negative attitude, bad attitude. Oh, you haven't done it for a long enough time. Oh, you're not confident. And actually, I've heard people say this about themselves. Because, you know, sometimes for some people, the worst boss or the worst person to live with is themselves. They're too hard on themselves, too hard on themselves. And I've even had a doctor tell me that before. But here's the problem. The doctor never gave me a solution on how not to be too hard on myself. I mean, come on, if that's the problem, then give the patient the solution. So see, these are all examples of why you should get advice and why it's worth paying for the right advice or for the people that, you know, you really know can deliver over and over consistently again. So where can you get advice? You can get advice on things like, how do you perform better in what I'm doing? You know, I'm already successful, but I just feel that I could do a little better. Or there's just more fulfillment, enjoyment, fun, and satisfaction and happiness needed in my life. That's A lot of people come to me for that. When I'm on the platform, I can just see it. I can feel it. You know, they don't have to tell me sometimes. Sometimes you can just sort of feel it. You know, something's just not right here. You know, you're making these breakthroughs and all this, but yet you're not, you know, I don't sense, feel, see it, hear it from you, your body language, everything. So, you know, I'm always looking into that because I want you to have an interesting, competitive, fun, enjoyable time. And I want you to learn the tools that you need to learn, the mental performance tools, life tools, organizational development and growth tools for breakthroughs, whatever they may be. Because, you know, I want you to take the tools that I have and implement them. And then with my tools, the great thing about them is that you're going to build on it using your own thinking, your own feeling, your own thoughts, your own words, your own actions, your own habits. So it's not just do it my way or forget it. And then you got to come back to me. Sure, they do come back to me because we're working on different situations and we're working on fortifying and solidifying how to use those tools and implement them at the right time. And then, of course, I have more advanced tools for situations that are a lot more advanced. And so then there's the other reasons for advice is, let's say you have a major presentation coming up and you're overwhelmed and you know, you've been working on this presentation, you know, and you've learned the skills of, you know, how to gather information, how to do research, how to present, but for some reason or another, it's just not making the mark for you. And you need an outside third party to take a look at it, to guide you, to tell you and help you and understand what you're challenged with. And that's worth paying for. That's advice. It could be because you're preparing for a meeting and you're having an important meeting and, you know, the meeting maybe is going to last like 20 minutes. However, you're going to prepare like 8 hours, maybe more. And you're just wanting to make sure that everything has been taken a look at as far as, you know, what are we trying to do? What are the outcomes we want to achieve? What are the objectives? How can we get both get towards that so that we both feel like it's a win-win? Okay, so that's preparing for a meeting. So there's just all types of advice like this. And, you know, it could be advice about your son or daughter making a career transition or trying to figure out what college to go to. You know, how do you get through that and how does that affect you and what do you feel about that and what could you provide as support in that area? And even you're nervous because you're like, you had a perfectly good thing going on. What's this you're bringing to me, right? You've seen them do that. You've seen people do that. You might have done something like that. So that's what the value advice is. So advice is very, very important. And sometimes, especially with friends or people that you're around often, you'll get advice and you know that it's good advice, even though you're not asking for it, or maybe you are, and maybe they're just repeating it, or you're asking for a tip or whatever. And the key there is to just understand that sometimes you do need to hear the same thing again. Now, they don't realize that they're really giving you advice or a tip. They're just being friendly and they're being a friend. And you've got to put the filter and determine whether or not it works for you and do you want to implement it. That's where you come into the picture. Okay? That is where you come into the picture. And that's critical. And then for paid advice, obviously, you're, again, going to somebody that you just know has more credibility. They do this for a living. They can be someone that can be with you for a longer term. They can be on retainer, something to that effect. So hopefully that makes sense to you as far as advice, the value, the importance, the worthiness of it. What is my zone effect for this week? I don't think I did any videos last week, so this week, the zone effect. Well, we know the zone is when you're making a performance breakthrough, improvement, you're experiencing some kind of record that you're setting, anything that it may be. It's happening in slow motion where everything slows down. Your time is not a deterring factor and it feels effortless. So you have these, and whatever it is for you, whenever you do have these, that's what I call the zone effect. And I think I'm the one who actually brought that to the industry, or to the human performance field, life field, and organization development breakthroughs field. The zone's been around for a long time, but a lot of people don't tell you how to get into the zone. They just know what it is and can describe it to you. Well, I tell you how to get into the zone, and I have tools to get you into the zone more often. And I also have come up with, and I'm the one who's implemented, as far as I know, I haven't seen anybody else talk about it, the zone effect. So last week, what was my zone effect? Well, I had a couple. One is I'm helping somebody to walk again. Something that you and I most likely do without even thinking about it. I mean, it's just so natural for us. Yet for this person, she's challenged with it. And of course, she used to be able to walk. And so now she's took 30 steps correctly. Wow. And normally I do not work with these people with this kind of situation and challenge, but more and more I'm starting to work with all types of people, because everyone needs a human performance, life, mental performance skills coach. And obviously it helps in and works in that area. It's just that everything is a lot slower. The breakthroughs don't happen as big, but they actually happen as frequently, or sometimes more frequently. It's just that they're not major breakthroughs, because what most people in the world can already walk, right? So, you know, you're thinking, how's that a breakthrough? Well, if you'd been through a stroke and now you're walking 30 steps, you'd see why it's a breakthrough. And actually, it's a huge breakthrough. So I'm very happy and pleased for her. As she obviously deserves to walk better. And so these are all the things that I'm helping her with, working on with her. And we have a team of people. Just most likely you're on some kind of team, although a lot has to be done individually. You are on a team, most likely in your company, your organization, your department, your team, your colleagues, etc., your family. So that was one. The other zone effect. Did I have another one? I did have another one, but it was more sports related. I had a new basketball move, so I was happy with that. And you're thinking, how could anybody have a new basketball move? Well, I have a new basketball move, and I haven't seen any pro do this move, so I like it. And then I am consistently serving second serves a lot better. So that's pretty amazing. And I've been working on that. And, it wasn't really anything real huge, but once I got the right, advice. Right? I watched a lot of videos on how to hit a second serve, but once I got the right advice, and for me, it was just two things. And that was it. And that's just really drastically increased my second serve percentage. And so I hope you also have a meaningful trigger for this evening. I do. This evening is refereeing again tonight, so it'll be interesting. And one of the things that I do in refereeing is always want to inform the people so that they respond, because I think that when you educate someone, instead of just saying, hey, just go about doing what you know how to do, and I'll take care of the calls and all that. Well, if I could give them a little education up front, it makes it a lot more fun, winning, enjoyable, all that for them and for me, and it's just a win-win both ways. And so what I am informing and educating them about tonight is simply this: win the right way. If you want to have fun winning, which I'm all for, and both teams should, obviously want that and do want that. And actually, neither team really loses unless there's like some physical violence or there's a bunch of arguments and you're not really playing soccer. You're out there just to argue and fight and quarrel with each other. Then, one team wins and one team does lose. Or really, in my mind, you could almost say both teams lose. So mine is win the right way. How satisfying and fulfilling is it to know that you won because you're cheating consistently? None, not at all. I mean, I played sports almost all my life, and even in your work or wherever you're watching this for your performance in life. Now, that's no fun. So win the right way, okay? And have fun and enjoyment winning the right way. And yeah, sure, sometimes you might not be in first place, but you learned a lot. You definitely gained a lot. You developed, you built, you probably experienced breakthroughs, and you're getting closer and closer. And that's how you form and experience intelligent breakthroughs in your performance in life. So I hope you have a meaningful trigger for this evening at 4 o'clock. I'll be back on with All About Life, experiencing intelligent breakthroughs.